The sinking of the steamboat Sultana in 1865 is a disaster that is often forgotten in history books. Despite claiming more lives than the sinking of the Titanic, the tragedy has received relatively little attention. The Sultana was a Mississippi River paddle-wheel steamboat that was contracted to transport Union soldiers who had been released from Confederate prisoner of war camps. Over 2,000 passengers were crammed onto a boat that was only built to carry a fraction of that number, and tragedy struck when the boat exploded and sank near Memphis, Tennessee, killing an estimated 1,800 people. The disaster was caused by a combination of factors, including the overloading of the boat, a faulty boiler, and a lack of safety regulations. The soldiers had been released from prison camps and were desperate to return home, so they crowded onto the Sultana in hopes of a speedy return. The boat's owners were also eager to turn a profit, so they packed as many passengers as possible onto the vessel, despite its obvious safety risks. The end result was a disaster of catastrophic proportions. The tragedy of the Sultana is compounded by the fact that it occurred at a time when the country was already reeling from the effects of the Civil War. Many of the soldiers who perished on the boat had already survived unimaginable hardships during the war, only to meet their end in a senseless tragedy. The disaster also highlighted the need for stronger safety regulations on steamboats, leading to the passage of the Steamboat Inspection Act of 1871. Despite its significance, the sinking of the Sultana has been largely forgotten in history. This may be due in part to the fact that it occurred at a time when the country was still healing from the wounds of the Civil War, and people may have been less inclined to dwell on a tragedy that was not directly related to the war. However, the Sultana disaster is an important reminder of the importance of safety regulations and the dangers of greed and negligence. In recent years, efforts have been made to raise awareness about the Sultana disaster and to honor the memory of those who lost their lives. Memorials have been erected, and a museum dedicated to the disaster has been established in Marion, Arkansas. By remembering the tragedy of the Sultana, we can learn from the mistakes of the past and work to ensure that such a disaster never happens again. In conclusion, the sinking of the Sultana is a forgotten disaster that claimed the lives of over 1,800 people, and it is important to remember and honor the victims of this tragedy. The disaster was caused by a combination of factors, including greed and negligence, and it highlights the importance of safety regulations. By raising awareness about the Sultana disaster, we can learn from the mistakes of the past and work to prevent similar tragedies in the future.